G'day viewers, my name's Graham Stevenson and I'd like to invite you to come on a journey of creativity and learning and adventure through the series Colour in Your Life. There's an artist in every family throughout the world, and lots of times there's an artist deep down inside all of us as well. So grab your kids, your brothers, your sisters, your aunties, uncles and mums and dads and come and see how some of the best artists in Australia do what they do. Well, g'day viewers, we're up in a little town called Vasey in a valley called Patterson's Valley, northwest of Newcastle. And I'm with one of Australia's leading landscape artists, man's a genius, Mr. John Bradley. How are you?
Fine, thank you, Graham.
Great to see you, buddy. It's a pleasure to be here. Now, your history, your background is pretty amazing. I mean, you're one of those guys that's just done just about everything.
Mate, I've just lived long enough to do it.
Aircraft engineer, electronics engineer, salesperson for engineering, soldier, you're an ex-commando, you're in advertising and marketing.
Yes.
And I think that where you've come from, I mean, a lot of the things that you did in your marketing career pretty well brought you to where you are now, isn't it?
Very much so, yeah. A lot of them are used in what I do.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit more about, where you came from to where you are now. What was the journey? You said to me you're a little bit like Tom Sawyer when you were a kid.
Yeah.
Always sort of out and about. You won your first prize when you were about 11 years of age.
Yep.
Started drawing when you were 4 and you just love nature. I mean, you can see that in your work. But tell me a little bit about the journey.
It's been one of appreciation of what's in nature.
Sure.
And I suppose to jump to the end of the story first, it's the culmination of that resulted in the painting, because I really wanted to enhance what nature already does very well.
Yeah.
So basically I just roamed around, and we lived down in a place called Marrickville.
Okay.
And the Cooks River ran down beneath us and wandered out to Botany Bay.
Yeah.
So you'd hop on an old mattress you found or a canoe you made out of galvanised iron.
That's the way.
Away we'd go. And that was it. That was it for the day. Or various things. We got shot at and all sorts of strange things. But that was growing up. The Huckleberry Finn way.
It's amazing. And you look at your work. I mean, you're an internationally renowned artist, and regarded as one of the top artists in the country. We're going to actually show some of those pictures today of the magnificence of what John has created in his journeys throughout the world. But because of your work being so detailed, and we're going to discuss a number of things as we go along with John, but because it's so detailed and it does take a long while, you're going to show us some various techniques on a couple of pieces today.
Absolutely.
So that people can see how you actually work these up, your background colours, the way that you go about. I mean, the little tools that you have as well.
Yep.
And even since I've been in here, you've sort of, because you're an engineering background, you're a very precise man. So all of these little tools that he's made to help him through. So we're going to go and start on this great journey with John and see what he creates. So come along for the ride. It's going to be great, guys.
Okay, what we're having a look at today, we'll probably do a couple of different subject matters. We've got two what I call bookend paintings. These are night scenes. Very few people paint night scenes, so I thought let's do something just a little bit different. They're not big pieces, so hopefully we'll get a fair bit of them done on the show today. You'll notice the one on the right here has been partly completed. I was just to give you an idea of where we're going if we don't get far enough with this fellow. First step is going to be to put in the moon. I'll show you how to put a soft halo. You'll notice this one's got a slightly warm tinge to it.
Yes.
And we often get this with the moon, particularly out here. So without further ado, we'll get started on that. So I'm going to start with, fairly obviously enough, a very pale mixture of the titanium white and the yellow. And we're going to go for a warmer colour now, which is the cat orange and white, mixed with a little bit of the blue-grey colour. Now what I want to do is to describe to you at some point what the palette actually consists of, and also why I pre-mix a palette. The main reason for this is that I find I work on a lot of big canvases, and if you get a meagre little scratching on the palette, you're constantly making up new and new mixes, and they don't work very well, and you find more time mixing than you do painting.
Yeah. You've really put a lot of colour out. You're not mucking around at all. You want that palette to be full.
Absolutely, Graham. That's very, very important, because you can pick up a nice juicy chunk and slap it on. I find, or used to find when I ran the art school down in Sydney, that a lot of the students would just mix up little bits because they were worried about wasting paint. And in fact, it's a false economy. It's also a bit like using artist grade paints instead of student grade. The artist grade are dearer, but the colour's better, there's more density of pigment in them, and they'll certainly go a lot further. So I certainly could recommend that. So a little bit more colour.
And even those paints that you're using, they're Art Spectrum, is that correct?
Yeah, these are Art Spectrum, yeah.
Okay.
Certainly we try and buy Australian wherever we can, use Australian.
Yes.
And Art Spectrum, they've been around for quite a while now. They've lifted their game enormously since the first days they were in business.
Great, they're great paints, but I mean, they really are good oils.
They certainly are.
Yeah.
So we'll just take this up and we'll darken the sky slightly as it gets further away from the moon. I'm just using filbert brushes at the moment. And I like these because you can cut an edge with them, you can make a nice soft top with them.
Yes.
They're a pretty versatile brush, whereas the square brush is much better for big areas.
I can see, I mean, looking around your studio, you go from painting on Belgian linen to painting on board.
Absolutely, yeah.
So why are you doing these techniques on board?
Well, these are actually Belgian linen which are laminated onto board,
Okay.
but just the primed board is excellent, because when I'm doing very fine detail, things like sailing ships with their rigging or anything like that, the little fine brush tends to skip across the top of the weave, so you get a spotty line, or you've got to make it so wet you don't actually get the fine line.
Yes.
So I find the board's very useful for that.
Okay.
Okay, I'll just take a soft brush now. And what I want to do, I just want to soften around here a little bit so it blends without being too dramatic.
This is part of the masterclasses that you conduct as well.
Yeah, this is
really,
right.
Yeah, really showing people that are competent artists
Yes.
how to raise their game even further as well.
Very much, yeah. It's a good point you raise, Gray. I do enjoy teaching people at any level, but sometimes you think, gee, it'd be nice to go for the more advanced sort of techniques, whether it be with composition, painting nocturnes or whatever it might be. There's still room for all of us to learn, and the professional artist as well as the amateur can gain something from this.
Sure.
I want to create some foliage tops in here. Just using the filbert, I'm just tapping it and pulling it slightly.
Yep.
Keep it up and down, a bit like a musical score, isn't it? You don't want things to sit up in a straight line.
But it's a fantastic technique that you can do. You can create this with just a couple of brush strokes.
Do you know, this is what it is.
Yeah.
It's simple, but it looks effective.
It's amazing.
I thought we'd just have a few words about the palette that I normally use. We've got a warm blue, which is the ultramarine blue, and just a bit of white added to it. We've got a cool blue, which is the cerulean blue, and a bit of white. The reds, we have a warm red, which is the cadmium red, plus 2 tints. We have a cool red, which is a spectrum crimson or alizarin crimson, plus white. We then have a warm yellow, which is the cad yellow deep, with 2 tints. And we then have the cooler yellow or mid yellow, which is just the straight cad yellow or cad yellow pale in some people's paint boxes. So what it gives me is a dual primaries palette. Warm blue, warm red, warm yellow, cool yellow. Now the other mixtures on the board are basically for convenience sakes. A bit of straight white, and this thing here we referred to earlier in the painting is what I call foliage grey. Full strength foliage grey is ultramarine blue with a little bit of the cad yellow deep in it, which just greys it off a touch, sends it a bit towards the blue-green colour. But what I will do at this point is I'm going to take this wonderful old
Look at that.
T-square. Isn't that a beauty?
That's fantastic.
It's so old, it's nearly as old as me, I think.
Yeah.
And what I do is simply line that up with the centre of the moon, take some of the moon colour, the light yellow, cad yellow deep, I should say, plus white.
Yeah.
And I just strike a bit of that down and down a bit further. Now what this gives me, once I move that away, is a guide now that I can work to for getting that reflection perfectly vertical, which is very, very important. Now the fire is also going to cast some light. So what I'll do with that is I'll do much the same thing, not that it's a very long strip.
Yeah.
But you see where the fire is here, and it's going to be warmer. So I'm going to put a bit of the soft orangey pink in there. So I've now marked both areas. There's also a fear, I think, when you first start painting, particularly if people are watching what you're doing, that, oh my God, it's not good enough, you know. And what you have to be okay with is to make a mess. I used to have a saying with the students, there's no painting you can't repair, you can't fix.
Sure.
They're never ever ruined. Not with oils anyway. I'm not too sure about a good watercolour wash, but that may be a bit different. So basically that's just very, very roughly in there. We'll soften it back up into here. The interesting thing about night scenes is your values are quite tricky. We don't have the range of values obviously we have during the daytime because the light source is so weak. And we also have competition with the two different light sources. At what point does this become weak enough for this one to take over? So the immediate proximity around the fire will catch the warmth, and the cooler colours from the moon will sort of take over more up here and into the background. So we'll see that shortly as we go along.
I think that's really illustrated in the picture that we're showing now called Bush Bonfire, which is just fantastic. You can see the reds and the glow from the fire up on the house, the lights and the background colour. It's just really quite magnificent.
One of my favourites.
Yeah,
I enjoyed
beautiful.
painting that, yeah.
It's beautiful, it really is. And the light's just perfect in it. It's amazing.
Oh, it's been a popular print too.
Yeah. I mean, you do produce a lot of your own prints, don't you? And sell those literally all over the world at the same time.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's handy having the in-house sort of facilities for doing it all.
Yep.
Probably 8 or 9 years ago, I saw a need for this. That they were just starting to get into the G-clays. And I thought, right, invest in it, do it. And we've also invested in our own framing shop, so it keeps your costs down, it makes it viable. And we quite enjoy doing that.
You've got a complete in-house position for yourself.
Pretty much. Maggie helps out with the framing up there. And
Is your beautiful wife, Maggie?
yes, her, that's the girl.
She's your lovely right-hand girl.
She is indeed.
It's always great to have a partner that's so dedicated to what you do as well.
Well, that's very true, mate. Very true indeed. This is an old, rubbishy-looking brush. It was a filbert at one stage of its life, but it gives you wonderful sparkly effects.
Okay.
So I keep them for that reason,
Yeah.
and it gives a rather nice foliage. Whenever we're highlighting something with what I call rim or edge lighting, the darkest part of your tree or your cylinder is going to be hard up against that light.
Yep.
If it's transverse lighting coming across this way, the darkest part will be round towards the shadow side. So I tend to just strike them in roughly like this, make sure I've got the branches joining up, 2 into 2 into 2. And when there's enough top hamper there, we'll just add a bit of foliage to that as well. I'm just going to put the darker colour, which is immediately behind the highlight on an edge lit image. It's not terribly fussy at this stage, we just got to get it in there. Down low we're going to get the strong goldy colours, and we're going to soften that back in a little bit as we go along. We'll now come back into the reds, and I'll just use that other bit to soften that back edge in a little bit. The foliage in behind here will reflect colour back into the back of the tree. So the ultramarine blue and white mix, because it's already a warm colour, it's slightly greyed off. And we're just going to mix that in with a little tiny bit of this green, yellow green. I'm just going to run a bit of that down in there. It won't stay as continuously lit or reflected as it looks now. We're going to mix other colours in with that. Some of them look as if they're a little bit on the strong side, and initially they probably will be. And it's one of those things that just sort of builds up as you go. Because I'm working on a fairly strong background anyway, is I'll often put the branches in using the full strength foliage grey or something similar. The reason I do this is when it's dry I can go over it with any colour, but at least I can see where I'm going and what I'm doing with it.
It's amazing that you can obviously paint beautiful landscapes, but the diversity of what you do is really quite amazing. From, you know, pictures of old ships to steam trains. I mean, some of these steam train pictures you've got are just really reminiscent of, you know, bygone eras.
They certainly are.
Disappeared. Old-fashioned towns, some of the street scenes that you've got with the old cars pulling up and the kids playing, and cityscapes, and obviously as an aircraft engineer, the military planes, you've got a fantastic understanding of them. So your work is so diverse. I mean, there's not a lot of artists that have the ability to really have the scape of what you've put together. It's quite amazing.
Thank you, mate. Yeah, I think most of the artists would probably agree that they don't tackle that range, because everything that you tackle, I guess, has to be learnt, and then you've really got to master it. And as far as the night scenes are concerned, I don't really know many people who do them at all because you really have to make up the light so much. And to me, it's a challenge. I quite enjoy that.
Yeah. And as you said before, you call these pieces, the reason that they're up side by side with each other is you regard them as bookends.
Absolutely. A lot of people like to hang the verticals staggered or alongside each other. And I deliberately make sure that any feature trees are in the opposite side of the painting. The scenes are sufficiently different that we've got, the small house and the father and son are burning off at the water's edge.
Yep.
With this, we've got a couple of campers.
And they're just perfect pieces for somebody's home as well.
Oh,
Really
absolutely
are.
so.
Yeah.
We've actually been selling a lot of night scenes lately. Night and sunsets.
Yeah, and for the collector, they're a fantastic size. I mean, some of your work gets quite large.
Yes, it is.
And sells for quite substantial amounts of money as well. But, pictures this size are just perfect for people.
So, okay, we'll pop these off the stand and we'll have a look at this other one now, which is a sunset rather than a night scene. But once again, a vertical, and it's got dry paint, so we can actually go over that.
Excellent. Okay, let's put that up then.
Sure. What we're going to do with it is to go in over the dried paint area, basically get some highlights onto the top of this little row of trees in here.
Yep.
I'm going to tap some highlights onto here.
You're just using the edge of that filbert again.
Just the edge of it, just tapping it on.
Yep.
Down here it's going to start curving around to the right slightly.
Yep. You're also involved in an exhibition at the Morpeth Gallery called the Lest We Forget exhibition.
That's right.
Tell me a bit about that.
This occurs every Anzac Day weekend, and there's usually 2 or 3 artists exhibiting, myself and Jennifer Marshall and Ron Marshall. I have military aircraft, various other forms of militaria and all the theatres of war, Vietnam, Korea, World War I, World War II. And it's been an enormous success. It's actually growing quite strongly. That's really where my involvement comes into it.
Because of the calibre of an artist you are, you do exhibit with other artists in combined shows literally all over Australia with the gentleman called Kevin Hill who brings you all together.
Right.
It's one of the most powerful stables of artists in the country, and you've obviously enjoyed being part of that as well.
Definitely. It differs from the Morpeth Gallery, which is run by Trevor Richards, in that it's a travelling show. So we have the 10 artists and 1 or 2 guest artists who stick with them, and we travel around the country, usually a 3-day exhibition over the weekend and the Friday as well, and it's been very, very successful also. Yeah, well worth visiting if you get the time.
Absolutely, and a great place for people to catch up with 10 of the most best leading artists in the country.
Definitely.
You're actually involved in licensing your work with some major US companies, I mean literally for global distribution, and the atmosphere that you put into your work is probably part and parcel. I mean, I've been involved with licensing myself in America a lot, and I understand perfectly why they're taking on your work, because the atmosphere and the colours are just fantastic. I mean, how did that come about?
I was actually approached by the CEO of a large licensing firm, and I was quite surprised because I really didn't think that our work would have been applicable in America. Apparently a lot of it is, and I think with the global companies it actually comes back into Australia as well.
Okay, John, well we might let you work. Looks like you're going to put some highlights on those trees, so we're going to let you work for a little while and then we'll come back shortly.
So next step, I'm going to pop on over and we'll have a look at this one. This time, of course, the light on here, of course, was striking that, and this time it's striking here. So just think of it as a source of light radiating out in all directions, and it will strike obliquely onto this one and obliquely onto this side over here. When I used to run an art school down in Sydney many, many years ago, a mate and I went out and we would constantly go around trees, and we would look at these trees, we'd analyse them, we'd look at the laws that we felt applied to them, and then we I would do tutorials on them. And a lot of people found that quite useful. And we looked at bushes, we looked at perspective, virtually everything you can think of, to try and come up with some simple basic construction details on it. Now, having got to that point, we need to start pulling some horizontal effects now across the water. Basically, when you paint water, you always paint vertical and horizontal. Never have anything leaning, because it no longer looks like water.
Yep.
And I guess that's probably the big trick. And then what I do is I use the bridge. Now, the bridge, as you can see, is simply a strip of timber with 4 panel pins driven through it. And I'm just going to whack in a few guide strokes here.
That's a great little technique, isn't it?
It works well.
And the nails basically just sort of glue it to the board as well.
Yeah. So just the knife once again, and we're just going to drag it.
Okay.
You see the sparkles beginning?
Yes. So you just sort of lightly flick it across the top.
Just lightly, yeah, almost flat, right?
Yep.
Of course, once the rest of the painting becomes like darkened in, this is really going to jump.
That'll pop out, won't it? Yeah.
So full strength foliage grey again. Just going to sort of slap a bit around there.
But you can see the depth of field increasing as well.
Yeah. I'm going to use the big scrubby old brush to create some foliage tops in here, over across the water, so it pushes the water back, and a few just in here to sort of round that area off. And we'll probably call it quits about that, I think, and I'll finish that off.
Okay, Pat. Okay, viewers, another fantastic day. John, thank you so much, bud.
Thanks, Graham.
Very talented.
Thank you, Sophie, as well.
Yeah,
did a fine job.
Yeah, she's an amazing girl. Now, also, John has gigles as well available, hand embellished, which I think is very important these days, that you can come along and get from his website. Your work gets quite expensive, so if anybody out there would like some of John's work, that's the best way to go about it. Also, he puts out great teaching DVDs, so if you want to learn how to paint like John, come in and see those. And for those people that are a little bit more advanced and want to work with a master artist like John, master classes. You know, you've got to be at a specific level to get into these classes, but you can always contact John on your website. And what's that? johnbradleystudios.com.au. Excellent. So come along and see John. Amazing stuff. Once again, we're hoping to have John's work in our studio as well. You can come to colorinyourlife.com.au and see all of the things that we're doing, and also come in and like us on Facebook. It's a great place to be. We have thousands and thousands of members in there now, so come in and say hi to us as well. We're going to head off again. Great day. Thanks,
Thank you, mate.
And remember, always make sure you put some colour in your life. We'll see you next time, guys. Bye now. See ya.